you can lose 20 pounds and still have more visceral fat than someone who hasn't lost a single one. I've seen this with my own patients. They come in frustrated. The scale moved, the clothes fit differently, but the belly is still there, still hard, still protruding, and they want to know why. Here's what most people don't understand. Visceral fat is not the fat under your skin. That's subcutaneous fat, the kind you can pinch. Visceral fat is packed inside your abdominal cavity, around your liver, around your pancreas, around your intestines. You can't see it, you can't pinch it, and the scale barely registers it. But here's the part that should get your attention. Visceral fat is the fat that actually drives the chronic conditions slowly killing most of us. Type 2 diabetes, fatty liver, heart disease, certain cancers. It's not passive storage. It's metabolically active tissue that produces inflammatory hormones around the clock. While you sleep, while you sit, while you eat a perfectly healthy meal. The good news, and this is the part one wants you to hold on to, visceral fat is actually the easiest fat to lose once you know how to target it specifically. Today I'm going to show you three things. The two categories of food compounds that directly shrink visceral fat at the cellular level, the drink that amplifies that effect, and the exact type and dose of exercise that a meta-analysis of 84 studies identified as the most effective for visceral fat reduction, which is almost certainly not what you're doing right now. Let's go! ACT2, the reframe. What actually feeds visceral fat? Before I give you the protocol, I need to give you the framework. Because if you understand why visceral fat forms and refuses to leave, everything else makes sense. Visceral fat doesn't grow because you ate too much one weekend. It grows because of chronic energy excess, chronic inflammation, and chronically elevated insulin, the hormone that tells your body to store fat around the organs. Think of insulin as a storage switch. When it's high, which happens every time you eat, especially refined carbohydrates, your body is in storage mode. Fat burning is locked. When insulin is low during fasting, between meals, during exercise, the switch flips, burning mode opens. And visceral fat, because it's so close to the portal vein that feeds your liver, responds faster to insulin changes than almost any other fat depot in the body. That's actually why it's easier to lose than subcutaneous fat. It's more metabolically responsive, it reacts faster to the right signals, and there are three signals that work directly against it. Reducing inflammation at the cellular level, improving insulin sensitivity, and increasing energy expenditure in a way that specifically targets visceral fat stores. The foods and the exercise protocol I'm going to show you hit all three simultaneously. ACT3, the food protocol. Two compounds that target visceral fat directly. If I had to pick the two most underrated food categories for specifically targeting visceral fat, it would be carotenoids and catechins. Most people have never heard those words, but the science behind them is remarkably consistent. Carotenoids, the pigments that reprogram your fat genes. Carotenoids are the natural compounds that give color to plants. The orange in carrots, the red in tomatoes, the deep green in spinach. And they do far more than make your plate look good. Here's what I find genuinely fascinating about them. Carotenoids don't just act as antioxidants, neutralizing the free radicals and oxidative stress that drive visceral fat accumulation. They actually influence gene expression. They can switch on the genes that program your body to burn more fat, and they can quiet down the genes that tell your body to store it. I looked at a randomized double-blind trial out of Japan that tested exactly this. 8 weeks of carotenoid-rich vegetables. That's it. And across all four groups, regardless of which specific carotenoids they were eating, visceral fat went down. Not total weight, not subcutaneous fat. Visceral fat specifically. The practical application here could not be simpler. Eat colorful vegetables every single day. Carrots, sweet potatoes, bell peppers, spinach, squash, tomatoes, whatever combination you enjoy and will actually repeat. The variety matters less than the consistency. Any colorful vegetable is delivering carotene, and those carotenes are sending the right signal to your fat tissue. Catechins, the compound in green tea that changes how your body handles fat. You've heard green tea burns fat, and you've probably dismissed it as marketing. But the mechanism is real, and it's specific. Green tea is rich in catechins, a class of flavonoid polyphenols that act on visceral fat through two distinct pathways. First, catechins boost fat oxidation and energy expenditure by stimulating the nervous system to burn more fat. Second, they inhibit an enzyme called lipase, the enzyme that processes dietary fat for absorption. Less absorption, less storage, and here's why green tea specifically outperforms other catechin sources. It also contains caffeine, and caffeine works synergistically with catechins to amplify fat utilization. They're stronger together than either is alone. A double-blind placebo-controlled trial, the gold standard, tested 600 milligrams of catechins per day through green tea for 12 weeks. The result was a significant measured reduction in visceral fat, not weight generally. Visceral fat. To maximize catechin content, choose minimally processed green tea. Matcha is your best option. It's powdered whole leaf, so you're consuming the entire catechin profile, not just what steeps out. Sencha is the next best. 2 to 3 cups a day is where the studies cluster. ACT4, the exercise protocol. What 84 studies actually tell us? Here's the part most people get wrong about exercise and visceral fat. They either do too little, a casual walk a few times a week and wonder why nothing changes, or they do too much, brutal HIIT sessions every day, overtax their cortisol response, raise their stress hormones, and then wonder why the belly fat isn't moving. Let me show you what the evidence actually says. A systematic review and meta-analysis covering 84 randomized controlled trials looked at every major exercise modality, aerobic, HIIT, resistance training, and measured their specific effect on visceral fat. The conclusion was clear. Vigorous intensity aerobic exercise and high intensity interval training were the most effective for visceral fat reduction. Resistance training was beneficial overall, but less effective specifically at visceral fat. And before you take that as skip the weights, don't. Resistance training is essential for muscle preservation, metabolic rate, and overall health. But if your primary goal right now is losing visceral fat as fast as possible, you need to dial up your cardio intensity. Now let me give you the most striking data point I've seen on this. An older study, but a rigorous one, took a group of people and had them do just 2 45-minute cycling sessions per week at moderate intensity, twice a week, 45 minutes. That's 90 minutes of total exercise per week. After 2 months, visceral fat dropped by 48%. Insulin sensitivity improved by 41%. And here's what's remarkable. Total body weight barely changed. The scale didn't move. The visceral fat nearly halved. This is the point I make to every patient who comes in discouraged because the number on the scale is the same after 6 weeks of doing everything right. The scale does not measure visceral fat. It does not measure body composition. It measures gravity's effect on your total mass. It is a terrible tool for tracking the changes that actually matter most for your health. So what does the right exercise look like? 2 to 3 sessions per week, at least 45 minutes each. At moderate to vigorous intensity, meaning your heart rate is around 70 to 80% of your maximum. If you don't want to track heart rate, use the talk test. Moderate intensity, you can speak in full sentences, but you sound a little winded. Vigorous intensity, you can only get out a few words before you need to take a breath. As for which modality, cycling, running, rowing, swimming, dancing, it genuinely doesn't matter. A meta-analysis comparing HIIT to steady-state aerobic exercise found no statistically significant difference in visceral fat reduction between the two. The best exercise is the one you will actually do consistently. That HIIT protocol you dread and do twice a month will always lose to a brisk walk you enjoy and do 4 times a week. And here is the final point from the data that I want you to remember. A study published in the British Journal of Sports Medicine found that the relationship between exercise and visceral fat loss is dose dependent. More exercise, proportionally more visceral fat loss. There's no ceiling effect. But, and this is critical, they did not find that same dose-dependent response with caloric restriction. With dieting, there is a point of diminishing returns. With exercise, there isn't. You don't need to starve yourself. You need to move more and move harder. Here's the protocol in one place. Every day this week, eat at least one serving of colorful vegetables, any color, any combination, and have 2 to 3 cups of green tea, ideally matcha or sencha. For exercise, commit to 2 sessions this week of at least 45 minutes at an intensity where you sound a little winded. That's it, not 6 days of brutal training, 2 sessions, and build from there. And stop weighing yourself every morning to judge your progress. Your visceral fat can be dropping significantly while the scale sits perfectly still. Use how your clothes fit. Use how your energy feels. Use how your digestion responds. Those are better proxies than a number on a scale. 3 weeks of this, the right food signals, the right exercise dose, and you will start to feel the difference before you can measure it. In my next video, I'm going to show you the specific blood markers you should be asking your doctor to run, because those numbers will tell you exactly what your visceral fat is doing long before any scale or measuring tape will. If this was useful, subscribe and tell me in the comments, are you a cardio person or a resistance training person? Because your answer might change after watching this.